Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 13 of the Hungry People podcast. My name is Michael Patrick Buckley, and I'm here with my co-host, AJ Divka. AJ and I have a tremendously fun episode for you guys today. We will be having our first guest on the podcast that AJ and I will be interviewing. His name is Josh Buchanan. And Josh, we are more than excited to have you. And it's great that we were able to work this out. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, by the way. My name is Josh. I am from Canada, currently in Canada. I'm kind of a nomad, so I bounce around a little bit. But yeah, currently home for the summer. We'll see what happens in the future. I don't know.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm into a lot of different things. I mean, I guess I have a lot of different labels. But yeah, we'll have a lot of different discussions about some of those things. So
Awesome.
Yeah, and Josh and I had met at Woodstock. Was it 2018 and 19?
yeah, I think 2018 is when we first met. Yeah, we were both
Just
there.
2018.
Well, no, I was there 2019 too. So yeah.
Gotcha. We didn't really spend too much time together, but then I started to watch a lot of your stuff on Instagram. I especially now find it very informative.
Right
Yeah,
on. Yeah,
and
we met briefly.
Yeah, and then just going off AJ, what AJ was saying, I met Josh online just through the people at Woodstock, and it would have been awesome to meet you this year. If you're able to go next year, I can't wait to meet you because AJ and I, we already registered for next year, so we will definitely be there.
Right on.
But yeah,
I definitely want to go. I want to go this year. It's just, yeah, it's such a hassle being Canadian to, do all the extra stuff with traveling. But yeah, hopefully everything goes back to normal next year and I'll be
totally.
A lot of our Canadian friends did not make it this year.
Yeah, that's
because of those restrictions. They can't take off for work for 2 weeks and all kinds of things.
Right. Yeah, but
And
I will
even
say, go ahead. Sorry.
I think Canadians can't even cross the land border right now by vehicle, only by plane. So that makes it difficult too. Yeah.
Wow. That is that's not fun at all.
Yeah.
But I will say, Josh, it's been awesome connecting with you online, and I've learned a lot from you. You're
Thanks,
very
man.
informative, like AJ said. So, and we just appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah,
Looking
for
forward
sure.
to it.
AJ, you want to get us going with the first question today?
Yeah, I do. Josh, how long have you been into the vegan scene, raw vegan scene, detox? Like, not that you're into detox necessarily, but how long have you been involved with being able to see everything unfold the last 5-10 years?
Yeah, with like the whole health
with all the
stuff,
trends.
I would say like 2014 is when I really started getting into all that stuff, like all the health related, fasting and eating in certain ways and whole food and just kind of researching and understanding holistic health better. That's when it all really started for me.
Gotcha.
I was always kind of like health conscious, but I never really went deep into it until then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I was the same. It was like late 2013, early 2014. I went vegan. The reason I asked is because, you come across like someone who learns something and applies it, and it's not someone that yo-yos as much. You seem very, stable in the sense that if something works, you're going to do it. And if it doesn't, you're probably going to leave it behind. And I feel as though when chatting with you before, I felt like you're just seeing people go through these yo-yos over and over again, the same loops. Or when someone's finally out of the loop, you see the next generation coming in, or the new wave of people coming in, jumping into these extremes. Well, what's it like for you now when you see this type of stuff? I know we're going to get into a lot of details and a lot of specifics on teeth and health and sleep and different kind of touch on different things during this interview. But overall, like, what is it like for you to see it now?
That's a good question. I think that's a good description too. Like, I'm not the flip-flop yo-yo type of person. Like, if I commit to something, usually it's because I've thought about it, I've put research into it, I've experimented a little bit, and then once I do commit to it, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this for good reason. Whereas a lot of people, they're just like, oh, that sounds cool. Oh, my friend's doing that. Oh, my favorite celebrity's doing that. Oh, that's trendy. I'm going to do it. And then they stop. So it's more just kind of like they're more impulsive, and I'm not that impulsive. I mean, I'm very situational, but yeah. So as far as like watching other people do that, it's kind of like, in some ways it can be frustrating. At the same time, it's like their life. It's their life, and I don't really doesn't interfere with mine much. And sometimes I think a lot of people just do things for the wrong reason, or they're misguided, or they're not clear about why they're doing things, and so it makes it hard to stick with. I'd like to help those people, but at the same time, like, I can't worry about trying to change everyone's mind. There's multiple reasons for that too.
I want to step in right there just because I think it was the last episode, MP and I were talking about how, like, there's certain people who, let's say, have something really, something's really wrong with them, or they're struggling with like some kind of inflammatory disease or something, to where it can require being more strict and being more persistent and diligent. But then you have a lot of this other wave of people who are completely fine by pretty much all means except their iris analysis, and that they use that as a reason to jump on some of these extreme ways of living, and they almost like destroy their health and lose their health. Do you see that as well happening?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, for some people, fear and suffering is a huge motivator, and it was for me. Like, that's largely why I got into the health stuff, is because I was suffering. And yeah, there are, people like you said who just kind of get onto one thing and kind of get carried away with it, and they become obsessive too. That's another thing you have to be careful about when you make a drastic change. Sometimes people get too caught up in it, and then it just kind of backfires, and they end up getting worse results. And I've seen that in various different forms too. So,
and they set these arbitrary like times, like I'm going to do this for 200 days instead of it being like it's failing after 5 days. Maybe I should stop.
Right. Yeah. Some people just aren't able to pivot either, or accept that they were wrong, or that they need to make an adjustment. Like, yeah, there's so many different kind of situations where people are maybe on the right track and they just either take a wrong turn or get too carried away, and then it's kind of counterproductive.
Do you have any advice for the people doing that? I mean, there's so many people all over doing that, and the advice could be simply like, work with someone, whether it be like a health professional or just like going into, if someone's trapped in this, like, where do they start? I feel like a lot of people are stuck and they would love help, but they're almost scared of the help, whether they think the help will make them worse, they can't afford help, like whatever. Do you have anything that comes to mind for you, like what you would want to?
Well, I've noticed that a lot. Like, most people need help in some form, but very few people want help. Like, people reach out to me, be like, "Oh, I like your lifestyle," or "I'd like to eat that way," or "I'd like to do this, I like to do that." And I'm like, "Sure, I'll help you for free. Let me know when we can start. I'll coach you through this. I don't expect anything." And they're like, "Okay." Never talk to me again. Like, I don't hear back from them. Like, people don't want to change, but it's like, I guess it would depend on the specific situation you're talking about. If you're maybe saying like a specific diet, I think they need to get really clear about why they're doing that. Like, when it comes to veganism, for example, I've actually steered people away from it, not because I don't want them to be, but because they're going into it for the wrong reason. It's like, you're going to fail because that's not the reason to go vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on that. And then even when it comes to fitness, it's like, what is your goal for being fit, and what is your methodology? Because if you're just choosing a methodology you don't like to get an end result, you're not going to be successful. Whereas if you can find a methodology you do actually like, you're more likely to be successful. It feels more like a hobby than a chore kind of thing. So yeah, it would really depend on the situation, but ultimately people really need to get clear on why they're doing what they're doing and what their goals are, and that just makes it a lot easier to stay focused.
I mean, that's exactly it. Everyone, when people are talking, whether it's detox or just veganism or carnivore, everyone's putting, it's like one band-aid on everybody. Like, it's because you didn't do this or because you did, when really my whole point is, it's not just that we're all different, because I feel like that's almost cliche now. It's more like to get to a certain result, you have to be specific with the person. I was just listening to recently, because I've heard about cholesterol for years, about like, if it's under 150 or heart attack proof, if it's 200 or more, you're going to prevent cognitive dissonance, and everyone throwing out all these claims. And then I heard Doug Lisle recently talking about it, and he's like, it's more about your normal range and whether that's higher or lower. And that's just completely different from what I've been hearing for years. So like, I just feel as though getting into the specifics for the person, whether it be, their blood markers or whatever, like people are not looking at health in that way. They're looking at it like, okay, if I do this for this amount of time and push through, I'm going to get better. And I think that's the responsible way to do it, is actually have some accountability on some levels, and also just be, be specific with what's going on. Because if you're not specific and you're just generalized, how can you ever measure getting better other than just going by feel?
There are some generalizations that apply to most people, but yeah, for the most part, health is such a nuanced thing. And then this like one size fits all doesn't always work, even though that's kind of what's happening in the world right now. But yeah, we need to kind of look at the individual. I mean, humans are very similar. Like, when you pull away the skin, like, I have the same anatomy as someone looks completely different from me.
Yeah, of course.
Physically. but yeah, at the same time, it's like, what is your history? What are your current conditions? What are your preferences? Because in terms of like turning someone's life around, like I said, with the health, like, or with fitness and stuff, you got to focus on things that you actually like. Otherwise, it's hard to stick to them. It's harder to stay committed and have success. So yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely so similar in so many ways, but there's like, and there is general things like water is really good for you. But if someone has like chronic, low sodium and electrolyte issues, it's like we have to be specific with what's going on, basically. Is kind of the point that I was making. But I completely hear you. Like there's so many things that we're the human species. We're not living like another species, like individuals.
Yeah, so it's a mix of both, like generalizations and then tweaking it to the individual's situation and conditions and stuff.
Real quick, can I chime in here? I just want to say, I just from like what you guys were talking about, I think that's the importance of getting a trainer, getting a nutritionist, or getting some form of coach that's going to offer, even if it's just offering a new perspective for that certain subject or part of life. And like AJ, like you were saying earlier, we see a lot of these people where they're going into these certain ways of eating and they're like, oh yeah, I am going to do it for 90 days. But what if you're failing after, like you're saying, like, what if you're failing rather quickly? That's why it's important to actually have someone there and help guide you at least, so.
Yeah. Like go to someone who's getting the results you want, take advice from people you admire, people you want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that too, I think it's a good idea. I mean, we can learn something from anyone, but we should never learn everything from one person. So it's like, even if there is someone you admire that's getting good results and they're giving you advice, still like be skeptical, listen to other opinions and stuff and kind of try and make sense of it and just go with what makes sense and then tweak it as you go. That's been how it's worked for me, is like I listen to different perspectives and whatever makes sense, I apply that. And then I just become a self-scientist where I have all this confidence because I tested it myself. I don't have to listen to other people's opinions anymore. I know from experience, kind of thing. Like my opinions could be changed, but when you actually do something yourself, you learn a lot better as opposed to just hearing it from someone else.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you do health coaching yourself?
No, I don't. I would. There was a time where I kind of put that out there, and no, I mean, if people wanted me to, I would. I never really made much effort to establish it, I guess.
Right.
Where would you say you're most confident in with, if you were to coach someone in health specifically? Like for myself, I feel as though like digestive issues is one I'm pretty familiar with. I'm pretty good with. I can almost get anyone who's, having bloating or constipation get normal pretty fast and pretty easy without spending a bunch of money. What area specifically are you pretty confident in?
Yeah, good question. Digestive as well. Like I've gone through a lot of that, so I've learned quite a bit. Just general health, whether that's like maintaining a healthy body weight or building muscle, things like fasting, intermittent fasting, improving your diet, whatever, calisthenics. Like I kind of I know a little bit about a lot of different things. I wouldn't say I'm like the high level expert in any one thing, but yeah, just kind of, I feel like I just do lifestyle coaching because it's also the minimalism and it's the nomad lifestyle, and it's I kind of live the life I want to live on a budget. So I feel like I could offer help to pretty much anyone in any situation, but I'm maybe not like the highest level expert in any one category.
Sure. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I know I heard you talking about like minimalism there and your lifestyle. Would you want to just go into some detail about like how you've been living over the past couple years or even year? I would love for people to hear that.
Yeah, sure. So it's like being a nomad and a minimalist, and that all started for me in 2013 when I first started traveling and did a backpacking trip to Asia. And at that point, it was just like, oh, I'm backpacking. I take a backpack. That's what you do. I didn't put too much thought into it. I got a backpack from a friend and just kind of filled it up with stuff I thought I would need. And then with that trip, it's like, being on the road for 5 months, after a while, it's like, man, this bag is kind of heavy and I haven't worn these. I have 2 pairs of jeans. I haven't even worn them in whatever, 3 months. Like I'm just going to donate a pair. And then eventually you kind of just like get used to living like that. And then after that trip, I went home and it's like, why do I have like 6 towels? I just lived for 5 months with 1 towel. Like I only need one. I can use it for whatever week and then wash it. And then, and just like I love that. It forces you to change your view. And it wasn't it wasn't planned. Like some people would come across like a minimalist type of video and be inspired by it. For me, it just happened very organically and unintentionally. And then the more you travel, it for me, it just kind of became like kind of fun. Like, oh, how can I pack less? How can I, just be more self-sufficient on the very few things I do have. And so, yeah, for the past 8 years, I've been kind of just this minimalist nomad where I can, do an 8-month trip with just a carry-on backpack. It's like a 35-liter.
That's impressive.
Just kind of, yeah, all different places in the world. And
wow.
And on a budget too. Like I can pretty much live anywhere I want in the world comfortably for, $1,000 a month. It doesn't matter if it's California or Colombia or Sri Lanka or wherever. So
well,
that's been my lifestyle.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I want to ask you too. So were you working before you started traveling? And then I have 3 questions. So that's the first. And then like, how much money would you say someone does need to save up to do some sort of trip or to live minimally for a year? And then did you also work while you were traveling?
Yeah, so I started traveling in January 2013. I mean, I did short trips in the past, but that's when I first started doing like the longer term trips. And before that, I was working. I really haven't worked very much. I actually quit my job almost 6 years ago. And since then, I've only been employed for 9 months. So only 9 months out of the last 6 years.
Wow.
And I don't do any side work or anything like that. I don't really have an income. I just live off of that.
Wow.
And as far as like how much someone would need to save or how much they would spend per month, it depends so much on their lifestyle. Like, are you going to Dubai and partying, or are you going to India and volunteering? Like if you're going to India and volunteering, you could probably live off of $200 a month quite easily. If you're going to Dubai to party, you might need 4,000, or even more living in luxury. So I don't need much, and that helps. Like I don't smoke, I rarely drink, I don't, a lot of these things that can add up, I don't need them. I just, so I can live a simple life, and I'm happy with very little. Like I was just in Colombia for 6 months, and I just rented a place that was, I don't know, like a little over $200 a month. It's just like,
wow,
a bed and a nightstand and a window and a fan and kind of a common area. And like, I'm happy with that. For me, that's comfortable. Some people just have really high standards, and the higher your standards, the harder it is to travel. Cheap. The good thing is I started traveling quite young before I really got settled into like an expensive lifestyle or something, because I know some people that are my age that have gotten so settled into that it would be really hard to now live the way I do because they got used to that.
I was going to ask that. And so now that you're home in Canada, or I don't know how long you're going to be there, but do you find that you have like a natural tendency to want to accumulate a little bit more since you have a space to do so?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I find myself when I'm back home accumulating a little more because it is like a home base. In part too, you do need more in Canada compared to Colombia, because in Colombia, like every day there, the temperature is like in Celsius, like mid-20s, and Fahrenheit, like high 70s or whatever. So like shorts and t-shirt all day, every day. You don't need as much. Whereas in Canada, you need kind of different outfits for different seasons. And plus I accumulate, I have a rice cooker, and I have like a waffle maker, and I have a blender, and I have a juicer. So yeah, I definitely I do accumulate more things back home.
I would think it's similar to almost like doing a long bike ride where you're going to need to bring more fuel and stuff. And then when you're not doing that, you don't have to worry as much. And it's almost like the flip with the travel. It's like if you're traveling, almost by default, you have to have less because it's a pain. But if you're home and stuff, it's like, well, you could have this extra comfort to where you don't have to run to the store to get the hot water or whatever it is. I don't know, but it seems just makes more sense when you're in certain settings to accumulate a little more. It actually takes some burden off. But I know that, constantly flip-flopping, I've done both, where it's like I have all this stuff, I'm sick of it, I want to get rid of it, and then down the road I'm like, I kind of need stuff again.
Yeah, and that's
I went to Hawaii with a backpack or 2 backpacks, and then I'm like carrying them around because I didn't have like a set thing that I was doing, and I'm like, oh my god, I pray I don't like throw the other one away, but I had important stuff in it. It was so annoying.
Yeah, well, like when you're traveling, it's kind of, if you're moving around a lot, you just don't want to accumulate a lot of stuff. So you get to the point where it's like you only want to hang on to things that are bringing you value on a regular basis. And then I just got so used to traveling like that's kind of become my lifestyle, even at home, where I don't really buy things unless I'm going to make use of them regularly. Although, yeah, like you said, it is easier to just accumulate useless stuff when you're staying put at home.
Right.
Yeah, I feel we all have those accessories or whatever we like, we just want more of it. And it's just like, we don't really need it, but we just want it. And it's just going to build up in excess for no reason.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think we refine it too. Like, you're going to be like, let's say you're working all day from your computer. It's like, oh, I could use a standing desk. I'm inside all day. I could use an air filter. And we start to just like talk ourselves into these things.
I mean,
and
go ahead.
Yeah, and they can be useful things. It's like, it's a delicate balance, I think, too. That's why in part, like, I don't like to stay too long in the same place, because I get stagnant, and I kind of like, things accumulate, and I get away from kind of that lean, flexible lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. It's like staying away from the bike too long. You get floppy. You get floppy fast.
Yeah, speaking of biking and moving your body, what are your favorite ways to move your body? Is there anything specific that you like to do, or are there any routines that you like to do?
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm into all different types of sports and activity. Basketball's been the main sport in my life, but I haven't played as much lately. But one thing about my lifestyle is I have to be adaptable. So you kind of take what the market gives you, right? Like when I was in the Philippines, I started boxing because I could get a gym membership in the Philippines for $40, where I had unlimited one-on-one coaching. Wow. So for a month, I was doing a lot of boxing. Whereas here, if I did that, it would cost me more for one session than it cost me there for an unlimited pass per month. When I was just in Colombia, there's a really nice outdoor, well equipped. It was a little bit grungy, but it was, very useful. This outdoor calisthenics park and gym with weights and stuff. So I would just go there and I did a little more calisthenic and weights.
Wow.
Right now, just going to the gym. It really varies based on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do like weightlifting. I think that's good. And calisthenics, just good for the muscles, good for the joints and stuff like that. So that's more so been my focus, especially since pandemic started and team sports became illegal.
Oh, jeez. You were also skateboarding a little bit too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember sending you voice messages, and you're like, I'm going up this hill right now, and I'm like, how's he doing this? How is he sending me a voice message while skateboarding up or down a hill, one way or the other?
Oh yeah, right. I was skateboarding a lot in Colombia. I was going uphill. I remember that time over the road. I was messaging you. Actually, it's funny because I bought a skateboard. That was like the first thing I bought with my first paycheck when I was 14 years old. And I maybe used it for a year, and then I haven't since. So it's been like 17 whatever years since I skateboarded. When I was in Miami, one of the guys that was at my hostel had one. I was like, yeah, it's kind of a cool idea. I should buy one. So I bought one. I just started skateboarding in January. Now I'm a skater.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's fun.
I saw some guy riding on a skateboard today. He was going probably 25, 30 miles an hour. It was like some electric skateboard. It's honestly just crazy what's coming out nowadays, and all the sort of technology that you can utilize to get you from one place to the next.
I seen a guy, a friend of mine crashed on not a friend of mine. I was hanging out with someone, and his buddy had just rode one of those, fell and scraped up his whole back, not to where he was like bleeding, but it was like all like, starting to bleed a little bit. Yeah. And the guy took a lemon and squeezed it all over it to prevent infection. And the guy was crying. He was crying.
Oh yeah.
It looks so painful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one thing about traveling. I remember just like being in Thailand, so many foreigners would fall on their like moped scooters, and you see them bandaged up arms and legs.
Are you a helmet guy? You wear a helmet? I'm like terrified to not wear a helmet.
No, I never do on my skateboard. I never do on my bike. On scooters, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care to, but I will. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I the one time that I actually had a bad incident on my bike, I wasn't wearing a helmet, but ironically enough, I didn't get one scratch or one scrape or nothing happened to me. So I was fortunate.
People are dropping like flies at Woodstock on the bikes.
Oh yeah,
all kinds of crashes.
The one thing with helmets, you kind of have to be careful, especially on like a moped style motor scooter, like the ones that cover your ears and everything. Like not only does it block your vision a little bit, but it blocks your hearing, which makes you more likely to get in a collision. So you're better off if you get in a collision with that helmet, but I think it makes you more likely to get in one. You just can't anticipate things as much. It kind of messes with your side peripheral vision or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Actually, I had a nightmare last night, and during the nightmare, I was actually staying at Miami Fruit, I think. And I'm like, guys, I feel a little weird. And I put my hand in front of myself, but it cuts off right here. Like, it's just, I can't see it. Like my vision, something's wrong. Like I can't see something right in front of my face. But if I put it out to my peripheral, I could see it. And then like I woke up and I'm like, oh, I could see my hand again. Like I was so relieved.
God.
And it just, because when I was doing it, I felt so disoriented. And that's why I thought of it, because of the helmet.
Wow.
I've had some weird dreams lately too. So I feel ya.
What kind of, name your weirdest one?
I kind of forget them, but even just last night, I was like in my dream, I was with my brother and we were outside somewhere at like a basketball court or something, and just some guy was like getting aggressive with us. I think I had to like lock us in the car and I wanted to run him over or something. But yeah, I forget my dreams like shortly after, but that was last night. So.
So with all the fitness and all the physical stuff you do, you pretty adapt pretty well, pretty much whatever you're doing. It's kind of what I'm gathering. Whereas me, it's like I thrive on routine. I thrive on structure. I thrive on being in bed at the same time. But it feels like you can just adapt.
Actually, you'd be surprised, because people probably think that about me, like, oh, I travel around, I move around a lot. But I actually love routine. And the way I travel at this point is not how I used to. Like starting out, it was like, okay, I did whatever, 10 days in Beijing, and then I went to another city for 5 days, then, to Thailand, and this place for a week, then this place for 2 days. I don't like that anymore, because I'm like you and I need routine. So like when I went to Colombia, I was there for 6 months. And for all but like 3 weeks, I was in the same bed, sleeping in the same room, cooking my meals at the same time, going to the same outdoor gym. So like I really need routine now too. So it's kind of both, where I don't like to get caught up in the same routine for too long, but I don't like to get out of a situation where I can't have a routine. So those first few days in a new country is always kind of uncomfortable learning experience, like finding the restaurant I like, the grocery stores, a place to exercise, meeting friends. But once I get settled in, then it's good. So yeah, I'm definitely a creature of habit as well, and I'm not all over the place when it comes to things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate you saying that, because even in my personal life, when I think about my daily routine, my job's pretty flexible, so I my routine can be all over the place, and I don't have usually like I know my schedule for the day for the most part the next day, so I can like get in a good routine, and I do like going to bed early, and getting up early, but some days are different. Anyways, like you were saying, changing up, like you like being on a routine, but it's good to change it up. And
right.
even in my life, when I think about my every single day, it's like, oh well, if I feel I don't feel forced to get up in the morning to go work out, because my day is flexible, so I can go work out at 10 o'clock, I can go work out at 2 o'clock, or I can go work out at 5 o'clock at night. But even just thinking about like, oh, like having to wake up early every single day just to work out, it's just like, it to me, it doesn't sound entertaining. I like having that flexibility in my life. But I feel like for me, the one aspect of my life that I do like to have the most routine on is my sleep, and is getting to bed early. So how is your routine sleep wise when you were traveling and whatnot?
Yeah, like that's hugely important. I think there are some things where the body really needs routine, and there are other things where you need to give it variety. I was gonna say a few things before I get to the sleep thing. But,
yeah, please.
For me, it's like, unless you're changing and offering variety, you can't grow. But if you're never getting settled into a routine, it's hard to improve on something. So I think you kind of need both, where it's like, do a workout routine for 6 months and then change it up. Like, play this sport for 6 months and get good at it, and then try something different. Because if all you do is like the same exercise routine for 10 years, like, yes, you're improving on it, but your body's just getting so used to that, and like that's not good either. So it is about balance.
Right.
And then as far as sleep for me, yeah, like I've never been one to sacrifice sleep. Like you hear people when they're taking college classes and they're like, oh man, I was up till 4 a.m. writing this paper and then whatever. I never ever did that. Like if I didn't get this essay done by midnight, too bad. Like I was going to sleep. I was the type that would prepare in advance, so I would start that paper, that report 2 weeks early, so that I wasn't like
Nice.
Having to pull an all-nighter the day before it was due kind of thing. So sleep has always been a priority for me. Like I just don't feel good if I don't get enough. So for me, I'm in bed every night between 11:30 to 12:30 and getting up, between 8 and maybe 10 at the latest. And depends on my situation too, like when I was working or whatever, that'll vary. But yeah, I sleep routine and consistency, that's a huge priority for me.
Good for you. Kudos to you. Even the other night, I was out to dinner with my family. It was my mom's birthday, and our waitress, she was still in college. And she said that she had a presentation the next day at 8 a.m. And she claimed that she had no clue what she was doing it on. So I don't know if I really technically believe that. She knows what the presentation's on. But she
you
was
never
like,
catch me doing something like that.
Yeah, right. She's like, oh, I'm gonna stay up. I'm gonna have to stay up all night and do this essay or do this presentation. I'm like, wow, that sounds horrible. I would not want to do that. And that's the thing, is that people don't understand what they're getting into when they say, oh yeah, I'm gonna pull an all-nighter. Oh yeah, I'm gonna stay up and drink all night. And just even listening to Lyle on sleep and Walker on sleep, right? AJ Walker's the sleep guy, correct?
Yeah, Matthew Walker.
Like just even hearing him on sleep, it's like, if you're not getting 8 hours, like what are you doing? And I feel like people are just running themselves into a hole that they don't even realize, and then they're making up with it with coffee and stimulants and energy drinks and pre-workout and all this kind of stuff. Whereas if you just got, I mean, this is for a different discussion, but if you just got more sleep and ate enough food, would you really need that? But
that's priority. Like I can go a whole day without eating, just fasting, and I feel fine. If I don't sleep, I'll feel terrible. So you can like easily know what to prioritize just by doing things like that. But yeah, for some people, that's what motivates them. It's like they don't feel the pressure to do something until it's like due the day before. So that's just how they're motivated. And it's like, I can't relate, but I understand if that works for you, go for it.
Right.
But I actually wanted to make one point too. There was this, I can't remember his name, Gil or something. Like he's fairly well known, I think, like in kind of the raw vegan community, and he's big into juicing and everything. And I was listening to him do podcasts last year, and he made a really good point and basically said like sleep is the most important thing. And when he hears people like waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to go exercise, you're basically giving away your gold for silver. Like it's one thing if you go to bed at 7 p.m. and you naturally wake up at 5, then you go exercise.
Yeah.
If you're going to bed at 11 o'clock or midnight and force yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. to go exercise, like you're doing a disservice to yourself. I'm not at all saying you shouldn't exercise, but if you're giving up sleep to do it, I don't think that's a good idea.
You disagree, to say the least, correct?
Yeah, I mean, forcing yourself to give up 2 hours of needed sleep to do an exercise, like the exercise that you can do later in the day. Yeah, I wouldn't advise that personally.
Totally. Actually, the best routine I ever had been in when I would go to bed I was going to bed early though, so I go to bed at like 9 o'clock and I get up at like 5 a.m. and I had that whole like 5 to 8 a.m. to prepare my entire day before like anyone else was awake, or I had even any desire to check my phone. So I would accomplish like everything that I would have had to do after work, and it was the best 4 months of like structure that I ever had. Yeah. But if I wasn't going to bed early, it would have been the worst because I would just felt terrible. So you can't, it's not that the 3 pillars are like, let's say the hydration or the food or the exercise. It's like the sleep is the pillar, sleep is the base, and the other ones like rest on top of those. Right. I remember there was like, I've had a lot of insomnia in my past, especially after graduating high school. And I remember there was a time where I was a busser at a restaurant. And I couldn't really even walk. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't really even function to walk. So it's like, it's insane how detrimental it will be, even just losing 1 hour of sleep or interfering with one cycle of sleep. It's I always say to everybody, it's the most underappreciated thing in health. It's free, but it can be challenging. It's not something you just take or do. It's something you really have to kind of structure your life in a way that you can actually get it. And a lot of people don't want to sacrifice the social dynamics and the eating late or the drinking or the things that interfere with sleep cycles, like certain drugs and alcohol and stuff. It's so easy to make the decision to not do unless you feel good immediately from it. I know that if you're going to have to force yourself or kind of work your way into it over a few weeks, it's more likely to fail. But if you felt it the first day that, oh my God, I feel so good from this rest, and you were able to do it the next day and feel it again, it makes it easier. But when you're out of the routine, when you haven't slept good in, let's say, 5 years, it's just like food. It's almost like, what's the point? Because you're not going to notice till that much till down the road sometimes.
Yeah, and the more you become connected with your body and just paying attention to things, the more you pick up on that stuff and realize like how you feel when you don't get enough sleep. Like so many people are just so disconnected and out of tune with their bodies that they don't really make the connection. And that's probably how I was 10 years ago. Like I remember there was a time when I was in university, and like there was like a stretch of a few weeks where I just couldn't sleep and I didn't know why. But now looking back, it's really clear to me why I couldn't. And I was just so disconnected from my own body. And so
why
now
was that? What was the main thing?
I was drinking a lot of green tea, and I'm just
Me
hypersensitive
too.
to caffeine. And I was also getting bad acne on my forehead here too, and I just didn't know what it was. But it's like I'm just so sensitive to caffeine that it messes with my sleep, and it also like dehydrates me and makes my skin a bit oily. And then I was just kind of
so I noticed that the caffeine, because I was a big tea drinker, Japanese style teas, I was super into it. I knew that was affecting me, but I also was getting some benefit in terms of like improving my digestion, I guess, from all the stimulation. Kind of like how people drink coffee and their bowels work better. But the thing that really was messing me up that I did not connect was I was eating so much so late, and I would have like 5 peanut butter and jellies before I go to bed. I'm like laying there, why can't I sleep?
Oh yeah, eating
But
before
I never
bed
liked
is
to be hungry at all. I would eat like so, all the time.
Yeah, that's another big thing for me.
Yeah, if I finish eating by 5 to 7, I just want to sleep because there's nothing to like eat, like there's nothing to do later. My body actually feels like tired the proper way, like it should.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's one of the things I had on my list there for like sleep improvement is like eating close to bedtime is not a good idea.
Do you find it simple now, I guess, because you're in the routine of it? Did you ever struggle with trying to have limits on what you're eating and eating windows? Did you ever find it like creeping into eating disorder type habits, or did you always find that it just helped you control the bad habits that you had before? Because obviously a lot of people get into restrictive eating, and I think there's a time and a place for restrictive eating and for you to ease up a little bit. And have you ever struggled on either side of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know a lot of people do struggle with that. I've never really been like that, and that's where it kind of comes back to my kind of like stability, where I'm not a flip-flop type person. I'm not highly emotional. I'm just very kind of rational and logical, and so I don't get kind of sucked into that type of behavior very much. And when I did get into, this is odd that for me, when I got into intermittent fasting, I had already done prolonged fasting. Like I started with prolonged fasting. So that made the intermittent fasting a lot easier. Plus I had like the suffering as a motivation. I was having a lot of health issues and digestive
Could you
problems.
talk about the long fast that you did? Because MP had brought that up to me. I never even knew you did a water fast.
Oh yeah, sure. I actually have a video I could send you guys too. I like documented it. I did like
cool.
whatever,
yeah, we can put the link down below for sure.
Yeah, sure. Or at least, yeah, if you guys want to see it yourselves. So yeah, as far as my fasting journey, that started very early on. I got into that in 2014, like around the time I started doing a lot of research into health. And my first fast, I did like I think it was a 4 or 5 day water fast. And for me, that kind of stemmed from the situation where I was just like, every time I would eat, something would happen. Like I would feel sick, I would feel nauseous, I would get bloated, I would have a headache, I developed anaphylactic allergies, so I'd get hives, my fingers would swell up, my lips would swell up. I'd feel really fatigued and have to sleep, or even I had really bad jaw tension for a while. So it felt like eating was punishment. So I came across fasting and I was like, oh, that makes sense. If you sprain your ankle and you keep on running on it, it's never going to get better. If I've damaged my stomach and if I can stay off it for a week, maybe it'll heal faster. So that was kind of my logic. And I remember doing that first fast. It was over like a long weekend or something. And I just remember my takeaway being like, wow, I feel better not eating than eating. And so that kind of intrigued me to do a longer fast. And I started, listening to other people talk about it. Like Lauren Lockman has a lot of good information on fasting. So I kind of set it up where I was away from everyone I knew other than one friend from back home, and we were traveling, and we kind of posted up in Thailand, and I did a 3-week water fast there and kind of had that all scheduled. And I have a journal. I did video journals. So I have a lot of information on it. And so that was my first one. I've done other shorter ones. I've done some dry fasting too. I know that's a little bit even further out there for some people, but I have done a 1-week dry fast.
And did you come out of the water fast feeling like something was accomplished, or more like what was your thoughts coming out of it? Did you feel like you healed up?
Yeah, so going into it, I was expecting to be this like life transforming experience, and it was kind of boring, honestly. Like it wasn't, nothing crazy happened. I was like, oh man, I hope like I have some weird like awakening or something crazy passes out of me, but nothing
You didn't
too
become
interesting.
one with the universe.
No, nothing like that. I became a little bit bored and had a hard time sleeping, and that was about it. I mean, there were some other little interesting things, but nothing crazy. And then when I came out of it, I think what the outcome was different than what I was expecting. I didn't feel like it was this major transformation in my health. If anything, it was kind of like liberating to realize that I could go 3 weeks without food and feel totally fine. I mean, not totally fine. I was tired and fatigued and didn't have as much energy, of course, but like I was functional. I was still like blogging and hanging out with my friend and talking to people and whatever. The biggest thing that I recognize, and this has been confirmed with so many things in my life and in my health journey, is there's really very rarely is there any kind of like silver bullet where it just like transform overnight. So what I've noticed is that I'll kind of investigate different modalities of health, try them out, and if they make a lot of sense, I'll stick to them. And then when I look back 6 months ago, 1 year ago, it's like, whoa, I actually have made improvements. I just didn't notice because it wasn't like an overnight thing. So with the water fast, at the end of it, I wasn't like, oh my God, like all these problems are gone. It was like a year after that, I was like, whoa, in this past year, I've made tons of progress. And I'm sure the fasting was a huge part of it, but it wasn't just this thing that like completely changed my life in a matter of 3 weeks.
How about that first long weekend when you did it? Did you feel like you felt good? You know, you felt better than you did eating, but did you come out back into the foods noticing that it wasn't affecting you as negatively?
I don't really remember. That was quite a long time ago. And I just feel like the biggest takeaway was that I felt better without food. And I don't think anything changed immediately after.
Okay.
It was more so just kind of like that got my foot in the door, and that turned a light on for me to realize, oh, this is a possibility. This could help me. I can achieve this.
Yeah, I have something similar, like a quick little story. So, I was vegan at this point for like 2 or 3 years, and I had some wrist inflammation that was pretty bad, and I couldn't do like a push up if I put weight on it, and definitely inflammatory. Like I would notice if I had a meal, it would get worse and swell up in that area. Yeah. And I went, and so anyway, I made that connection. Like when I eat, it's getting worse. And I remember I was walking down Main Street where I lived, and I ate, and I'm like, it's like radiating, like it's so painful. And I went to the doctor, and they gave me some anti-inflammatories. They didn't see anything going on, but it was so bad that I was like, I intuitively, it was before any kind of detox or knowledge about fasting or anything like that, I bought some of those Lakewood juices, the pineapple and mango ones, and I just did. I was like, I got to do at least 2,000 calories. I'll sip these over the day, because when I was if I was drinking stuff, I wanted to get calories in still, and I didn't want to do water fast, so I drank those. And on the third day, something weird did come out of me. I'm not going to make any claims. I was just drinking the juice, so there was no bentonite clay or any of that.
Yeah.
But I remember afterwards, I got in the car and I was driving, and I literally had to park and just go for, like, I just ran 2 miles. I was like, I have so much energy and it actually feels so good. And the takeaway from the reason I bring that up is because it was like, I was just like you, I was listening to my body, and it was suffering as a result of putting something in, and I took action on that. And then when I felt better, I went back to somewhat normal style. Whereas people, I feel like later on when I went on to destroy my health in a sense, or create less health, is because I was doing something because of an ideology, and just like, okay, I'm going for until I see some kind of this or that. And it had nothing to do with what had worked previously. It was more like, I'm going to go, arbitrary rules and stuff. So I just wanted to point that out. I think it's very important, because people are getting so caught up, and you just see it all the time. If you're involved in this community, you see it, and there's a reason I brought it up in the beginning of the show when I asked you that, Josh, is because I feel really strongly, and I feel the empathy for these people, because I've been there, and I don't want to be the person that tries to stop them from doing what they want to do. I support them to do what they want to do, but it just it gets to me. I can relate to it, and it feels pretty upsetting, because it just keeps going. I guess maybe it always will, but yeah. I just want to encourage people to actually just feel things out, and kind of know, when it's time to listen to your body, and when it's time to go with a little more common sense or someone who might know more than you.
Yeah. And when you're in a desperate situation, you're more likely to do things that are a little bit crazy. And like I can relate to that too, where when my health was really bad, I was more open to these more kind of far out things. But now that I've really got things on track, I'm less interested in experimenting with really alternative stuff, I guess, whatever. So
yeah, you're in a vulnerable state. I mean, you're in a vulnerable place. It's easier to make these extremes for sure.
Right. I remember that feeling when I was in 2014 or whatever, especially when I was having bad allergies with like lips swelling up. I didn't know, like I'd go to work some mornings, my face was swollen. It was like terrible. It wasn't super painful. It was just a really an uncomfortable situation to be in. And I remember my mindset at that point was like, you know what? I would be willing to eat like mud.
Oh, you're muted, Josh.
Josh, you got muted. I think you can unmute him, MP.
Yeah, hold on one sec. Josh, you're muted. You got muted somehow.
Somehow
There you
I
go.
got muted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
It cut out when you were going to say something about mud. You would eat mud.
Oh yeah, no, like not literally that I was going to. It just that's how I felt. Like I would almost be willing to do anything to just regain my health, kind of thing. So yeah,
Right.
I get that when
relate,
people are in desperate situations, they're more kind of influenced. It's it's that fear, desperation can make people do things that aren't so sensical, I guess.
Yeah, when I started eating rice and bananas, doing the Raw 4 thing, I felt so much better instantly. And I remember I did it for months and I felt fantastic and I felt carved up and all that kind of. I felt stable for the first time where I noticed like, okay, I'm getting mad right now because, I haven't eaten 5 hours or I didn't sleep that well. I could finally make that connection like, oh, this is happening today because of what I did yesterday. Whereas before everything was just so boggled, so confusing. And people would ask me all the time, don't you get sick of rice? I'm like, I never get sick of feeling good. I've suffered for X, Y, amount of time. I'll do anything to feel good if it makes sense.
Right. And that's important too, because actually I think for you and I, at least, that's probably made us more able to adapt, because if we were suffering, we were willing to make changes and give things up. And that just makes it easier. Whereas if someone's not suffering, it's like, no, I'm not going to give up this junk food or that junk food. Like I feel fine. So like that motivation sometimes comes from the suffering, and the ability to be really adaptable can also come from suffering with those things. So like now it's like food. If you would ask me 12 years ago what my favorite foods were, like I'm fine with not eating them anymore, because I got so used to kind of experimenting and doing elimination diets and fasting and stuff that I can go without anything and I'll survive, I'll adapt.
So what about today? Are you still dealing with any of those issues, or do you feel that most of the health issues that you were dealing with have been resolved?
Almost all of them are resolved. Not all of them, but I remember I did a video interview with Fruity Lou is her name, Louise I think she's from Denmark. And I kind of talked about all those things where at one point, like between 2010 and 2014, I feel like I had 100 different issues. None of them were super severe. Like I didn't have cancer or anything, but just a bunch of little things that were really bothersome. And at this point now, I maybe have like 7 or 8 problems remaining. So my life is pretty normal. It doesn't really interfere with much of anything.
Right.
But yeah. So they've almost all gone away. I'm just kind of reached a bit of a plateau with a few things remaining, but yeah, those things aren't
yeah, I feel like no matter what kind of diet you're eating, even if you are eating the perfect diet, I feel that people still have issues, know, no matter what they are, as people are still going through stuff.
100%. Diet is extremely important, but it's not the cure all.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to fix everything.
Totally.
Is there a certain type of way that you prefer eating? I know you mentioned intermittent fasting, and do you eat like similar, like starch based, or are you just kind of like, is there anything that you steer clear from on a vegan diet, or are you kind of like, as long as I'm eating enough calories, or as little calories that are necessary? Like what kind of parameters do you have, any that you follow?
Good question, AJ. I like your questions. So yeah, I've experimented with different things, and what makes most sense to me and what works best for me is more whole food, plant-based, high carb, less processed stuff. I really like intermittent fasting. I've done, as I said, 1 meal a day, 2 meal a day. Right now, what I've been used to for the past 6 months is intermittent fasting until noon, and then I have for lunch. Depends where I am. Like in Colombia, I was having a lot of fruit and some fruit juice. Here in Canada, I was having some fruit, but I feel like the fruit kind of sucks right now, so I've been doing a little more juicing. So yeah, for like the past couple of weeks, it's juice for lunch. So I kind of am like raw till 4. I've been doing like the carrots and celery and apple juice. And then, so my evening meal is the big meal. And that's how it was when I was doing one meal a day. I would just have like a huge meal at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6, something like that. And my evening meal is more cooked food, more starch-based type stuff, like,
Waffles.
oats. Oh yeah, I've been crushing the waffles like crazy since I've been back. Like I got this waffle maker and it makes 4 of them. So I've just been making waffles out of like oats. Use oat flour and then like almond milk or cashew milk and then bananas. And yeah, that's half of my my evening meal. So that's actually one of the tips too that has worked well for me in terms of like being able to gain and maintain weight. I've always struggled with that. But if I have my lunch meal, which is like hydration and fruit and vitamins and stuff, and then for my evening meal, that's more the calorie density.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do 2 separate dishes within that meal because I can like eat the first one and feel like, yeah, I've had enough of that, I'm satiated, now I'm going to move on to the other one. And that's what allows me to gain weight, because I'm pretty like ectomorphic, like I can get slim really easily. So that's one of the things that's really worked for me. So yeah, lately it's been like big plate of waffles, and then after that it's like rice and beans, tofu, veggie burgers, maybe some brown rice pasta or whatever. So it
Nice.
varies depending where I'm at in the world.
So when MP and I were just at Woodstock, Rain
Yeah.
had been mentioning for Miami Fruit that like,
Yeah.
when we're eating these starches, and it applies to fruits as well, but he used rice as an example, a lot of some of the calories can be caught up in the fiber and you're not digesting it. So would you think that for people that are eating a vegan diet, they're lighter or they're trying to gain more weight, but they're eating, they're kind of stuffing themselves with starches? And do you think that they actually are losing some of those calories because of the fiber? And would you recommend, it's an individual basis, but would you recommend maybe some things that are easier to get the calories out of, something like waffles and these other vegan foods? And where also, if you can add on, where do you stand on like, vegan chicken nuggets and stuff like this? Do you think there's a time and a place, or do you think that they're pretty unhealthy?
Yeah, good questions as well. So with that, like, I guess, do you mean like, if you have 2 different types of food that are equal in calories, is one source going to be more absorbable? Is that kind
so
of
like if you eat a piece of meat, I feel like a lot of the people who are going back to meat and feeling better, they're getting, whether it's the density, but also the absorbability. I feel like some things are easier to break down, not from really like a mucoid plaque, not that kind of stance, more like if you go to the bathroom and you see whole kernels of rice or corn in there, I would assume you didn't get all the calories that were inside of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I've kind of thought about that a little bit. I don't know for sure. For me, it's always been thermodynamics. Like it doesn't seem to matter what I eat, as long as I'm getting a certain amount of calories, my weight will stay the same. There definitely are foods that are easier to digest, harder to digest, and some that don't digest. The thing with corn and rice is that they're not, I eat them and I think they're good. They're not optimal human foods in the sense that they're actually seeds. Rice is a seed, like you can sprout it. And seeds are not digestible by humans, right? Like any type of seed you eat, if you eat like dragon fruit or poppy seeds or watermelon or whatever, you eat them and they pass right through you. And that's by design. We're supposed to eat the dragon fruit and then go dig a hole in nature, fill that hole with the poop, and then that grows into a tree, right? So like rice technically is a seed. That's why you can't eat it raw or it won't be digested. That's why we need to cook it. So it's not optimal. But yeah, if you're having a hard time breaking down rice, that's probably more of a sign of like having kind of low digestive strength. Corn it's a more commonly thing that's hard to digest, but you should be able to digest it with if you have strong digestion. Yeah, I don't know for sure if that applies, because yeah, people are putting a lot of whatever hemp seeds or something in a smoothie and it's going right through them. I don't know I don't think you're getting the calories from them.
Right.
Yeah, that's why.
How about?
Go ahead.
No, you're good,
no, you go.
I was just going to do the follow-up of where do you stand in like the processed vegan kind of stuff, chicken nuggets and vegan burgers?
Like the vegan junk food, I think it's good that it exists.
But from a health standpoint, not from like an ethical standpoint or a like environmental. I want to know, like, do you think there's a time and place? Do you think it's necessary and useful, or do you think it's just kind of not unhealthy?
And this doesn't have to be based off like studies or anything. Like, we just want to hear your personal perspective. Like, just what do you think?
I really only quote studies to like offer information to the general public, the masses. I don't base much of my opinion on studies. But
Yeah.
so as far as like vegan junk food, it's like, it's good that it exists. It's not great for the environment and it's not great for health, but I will still eat it sometimes because in part it's like we need to respect our history and we can't get too carried away either. So I don't beat myself up at all if I go have a vegan pizza or what. I've never really had vegan chicken nuggets, but I would. I probably wouldn't feel great after. I mean, depends what it is, but yeah, those. So that's where veganism gets kind of clumped in with being healthier, environmental. But if you're eating a bunch of vegan chicken nuggets, that's not healthy and that's not good for the environment. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I will eat it, but yeah, those aren't health promoting foods.
Yeah, I just think to tie those together, both the questions, the reason why I put them in that order is because like a lot of Durian Rider Harley, he'll say if you go on to like any of these chats about people eating whole food plant-based, like they're all failing and they talk about how they're starving. And so the reason I brought it up is if you can, when you're really hungry, supplement with some of these things, because maybe you do have weaker digestion or something, just to get some kind of thermodynamics going on there.
Right.
Do you think it's like a necessary tool or step? And I know that a lot of friends of mine think that it is.
Oh, true. No, that's a good point you bring up, actually. Yeah, I would say for someone who's transitioning from more of like your standard American diet, it's probably better to transition using some of those vegan junk foods, just because of like, number one, it's going to be an easier transition because they can continue eating things that are very similar to what they're used to, but also it's going to be so much easier to get the calorie density and you're less likely to have bloating. That's one thing I've noticed is I'll get bloating more from healthy whole foods than I will from processed foods.
Yeah.
The other thing for me and like my body type is I have to eat some processed foods or I just get too skinny. So it really depends what it is. But no, I think there definitely is a place for that, especially for transitioning. Like it's and that's one of the main reasons why people fail on a whole food plant-based diet, or when they're trying to go vegan, they're like eating healthier foods, but they're like, I couldn't do it. I was just feeling tired. I needed more energy or more protein. I was getting skinny. It's like, no, the problem was you went from eating all this highly processed junk food and calorie dense animal foods to eating like salads and apples and carrots and bananas. It's like, there's no way like your average person could transition like that.
Right.
Like it's just too much volume. And that's probably the main reason that I've seen people fail trying to adopt that diet is like,
I remember when I first found Rich Roll. Rich Roll was really big on doing the vegetable smoothies with like beets and beet greens and cucumbers and all these things. And, you know, he also does eat all these other foods, but I remember watching him being confused because I would be going from eating 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day. And then I'd be doing like cabbage smoothies with beet greens. And I'd be like, and then as soon as I'd eat garbage, I'd feel so much better. And there's such a disconnect. I feel like one of my goals with hungry people in this podcast and everything is to make it really clear, because there's so many misconceptions, whether people are listening to, you know, us, Robert Morris or McDougall or any of these people. There's so much confusion on what actually they mean, because they're always trying to make a point. And sometimes it's clear and a lot of times it's very confusing to people.
Yeah, there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of kind of twisting things. And one thing I don't like that I hear a lot is like health professionals and doctors and nutritionists and coaches that really understand these things well will bash sugar, but then and starch, and then tell you to eat fruits and vegetables. It's like, how can you avoid sugar and starch and then eat a lot of fruits and vegetables? Like they need more clarity when it comes to that, because there's a big difference between Slurpees and Skittles and popsicles compared to apples and carrots. And, you know, if sugar is that bad, like, then we should stop breastfeeding infants, because human breast milk is so high in sugar. Like, you know, we have to be more specific about the type, I think. And when people think of like starchy carbs, they're thinking like, oh, potato chips that are like deep fried in oil and covered in salt. It's like, no, when I think of starchy carbs, I think of like sweet potatoes and like cassava or yucca or, you know, pumpkins, things like that. You know?
Squash,
so
yeah.
Yeah, we need to kind of like clarify. People just start thinking like, oh, all sugar is bad. It's like, no, not all sugar is bad.
Well, it's funny because you say that. It's funny you say that because I was talking to somebody the other day who actually has diabetes, and they were saying like, hey, I hear you like you eat a lot of fruit, you know, like, is that all you eat? Like, you better watch out. There's a lot of sugar. You know, I have diabetes and my doctor says to stay away from all types of sugar, you know, and
Yeah.
And I'm just like agreeing. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm like, cool. Thanks for your input. You know, like I understand. And I'm not like, cause I'm not one to just disagree and argue with someone right in the spot there, especially when it's someone that I'm close with. So I am definitely much more agreeable in those circumstances, but people are definitely confused, and it's sad, you know?
Right. And I don't agree with that perspective. I'm similar to you, where I think some people probably see my Instagram post and think I'm like a confrontational guy. I'm not. Like I get along with everyone. Really, like, rarely am I confrontational.
Right.
But yeah, when it comes to the whole diabetes thing, like I don't think sugar causes diabetes. I think sugar triggers diabetes, and there's these other things that have happened that have created a diabetic situation. And then when you're eating things that are high in sugar and high in processed fat, like those are the worst things you can eat. But people, you guys have talked about this quite a bit, I think, in your podcast, is like they think of like ice cream as sugar and cookies as sugar. It's like, no, they're actually mostly fat sweetened with some sugar. And that's like the deadly combo, where you have this highly processed fat, and on top of it you have processed sugar, and it's just going to mess up your whole situation. I think maybe I should give an explanation here on that quickly. I think this is an easy thing to understand, where imagine if you put some orange juice or some watermelon juice on your hands. You can probably rub it into your skin quite easily, right? Now imagine if you put soybean oil, canola oil, whatever type of oil on your hands. You can't rub it in. You need to like rinse it off with hot soapy water, right?
Stick kind of.
Right. But then imagine after that trying to put the watermelon juice, the apple juice, or the carrot juice on your hand when you've now coated it in soybean oil.
Right.
It'll just roll off. It won't absorb. So if you're eating a diet that's really high in palm oil, canola oil, soybean oil, it's going to do the same thing. Like our intestines are just a continuation from our skin, right? You can keep going. So if you're going to coat your digestive system, and then you're going to try and eat fruit, and it's going to mess up your blood sugar. The fruit is not the problem. The fruit is the trigger to a different problem. So that's, to me, how diabetes and blood sugar issues work largely. I mean, there are a few other things at play, but yeah. I feel like I'm getting lost in the shadow here.
Hey, that light shining on you, baby.
It's working. It's kind of amplifying the mustache.
It looks great. You look like Mario.
Cool. If I'm getting too dark, let me know and I can adjust things.
And that was a good explanation, because not everyone is familiar with how, you know, the insulin receptor sites are coded and everything. And I feel like that's a good visual, because so many people confuse those two things, the fat and the sugar, and it just, you never get anywhere. Even like I remember talking with someone and I was saying how, like, you know, type 2 can seemingly be reversed, and they're like, no, my aunt says it's impossible, and she knows she's had it for 20 years. I'm like, well, I wouldn't listen to her.
Neither. I feel like I've never done that experiment, but I'm sure if I coach someone, they could drastically improve their diabetes in a very short time.
Well, actually, I worked at this place called Elevate Nutrition, and we ended up doing some kind of like health consulting coaching, and my boss, he started doing these lectures, plant-based nutrition and stuff. And we would have people come in, and we would look, especially him, but we would both look at their blood results and their markers, and we would kind of give them our thoughts on it. And we would work with physicians and kind of, you know, it was more education. It wasn't necessarily like, you know, us giving medical advice. But I remember a woman, she came in and she's like, I've been eating potatoes and starches and more vegetables and fruits, and it's the exact opposite. I've had diabetes for 30 years. It's the exact opposite of what everyone has told me the entire time, and I'm no longer diabetic. Yeah. And like she says to me, like, I'm fucking pissed. She's infuriated that she's been suffering with it for so long.
That's the unfortunate reality of this world, is we've been misled so much. Most things are the opposite of what we've been told.
Right.
And that's actually personally what I would recommend for someone who has diabetes. I wouldn't hit the fruit really hard. I would hit the starch really hard. I would do, you know, oats and rice and potatoes and stuff like that, because it's going to be slower digesting. It's not going to trigger blood sugar spikes as much.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like even with the fruit, it's sometimes it is like if you get a good piece of fruit, it honestly is super sugary compared to the starch, which it doesn't just punch you as hard as some of the fruit would.
I think the problem why I wouldn't recommend the fruit other than that is just like, it's not very satiating. And if you're having low and high blood sugar, you're constantly going to be putting it in and kind of feeling tweaked out a little bit. And I'd rather you feel smoother and calm when doing it. And that just one last thing I want to throw in there about the blood sugar stuff. Like if you guys feel as though you're eating, if anyone out there has diabetes and you feel like you're eating pretty clean, but you're still having blood sugar issues, like the sleep, as we talked about earlier, really affects all of those types of hormones and everything. And I remember I tested myself. Like I metabolize fruit sugar really, really well. I can have a 10 banana smoothie and 30 minutes later, check my blood sugar and it's almost completely back to normal and fine. And there was a day where I didn't get good sleep and I was like, I'm going to check it, do the exact same thing I did the day before. And it was like way higher than diabetic ranges. And for me, like, I feel as though that's another thing that's overlooked. Like being able to rest and digest literally is, goes hand in hand.
It's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One other important thing to add on that is for people that do struggle with blood sugar issues and digestive issues, I would say consider looking into the low FODMAP diet, because certain foods are just more fermentable and they can cause blood sugar issues and bloating and stuff like that. So if you are having those issues, like look into that a little bit. I know that is.
You're saying the fermentation's bad or good?
It's bad because high FODMAP foods not only can cause more fermentation and bloating, but they can also cause more blood sugar spikes if you have suboptimal digestion. So yeah. And one other point that came to mind too is on a previous podcast you guys talked about, I think it was MP saying that he was for a while adding some, was it coconut sugar to smoothies or something? And you would notice that cane you would feel, cane sugar, you would feel hungrier sooner.
Yeah.
Right. I bet you that wasn't hunger. That was probably a bit of a blood sugar spike. And I've noticed that before too, where if I have certain juices or something with some added sugar that, 3 hours later, I'll feel kind of like that little bit jittery blood sugar feeling low. And then I think, okay, I need to eat. That's not true hunger. It's a blood sugar spike. And yeah, having, I think, processed sugar in that situation could be why you felt that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So Josh, I have a specific question for you. Are you interested at all in long distance ultra type endurance feats?
I just got muted again for some reason. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yep.
Can you hear us?
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't hear you. Check if you're muted. I think it maybe just muted everyone.
No, I'm checking. I think we're all good.
I can hear MP.
Are you back?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't know. It just muted us automatically.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Did you hear my question or no?
No, it got cut off. Yeah.
Okay, I was just asking. Do you have any interest in certain things like ultra endurance sports, whether it be cycling, running, biking?
No, not really. I mean, I probably could get into those things. I've never really felt that drawn to them, but I don't see an issue with them, but I think there are people that get carried away, and that can stem from certain psychological situations. But yeah,
I completely agree. But the reason I bring it up is, do you think that it's a cheat code for being able to eat whatever you want? And so if you're biking, how like if you had added sugar or something, you might feel a little jittery, some kind of blood sugar crash. But let's say you're running like crazy, you're doing ultra marathons, or you're biking a lot and you're just burning up so much. Let's assume you're keeping it vegan, if you are vegan or whatever. Do you think it's a cheat code, or do you think it's creating detrimental stuff down the road? What's your perspective on that?
On diet when it comes to endurance?
Or just like these long form sports that you're burning so much, it's almost like if you tried to eat whole food plant-based, you would fail like very quickly.
Right. So that's one of those things where it's like both, I would say, just off the top of my head without putting too much thought into it. Like number one, if you are that type of athlete, you really need to be dialed in with your nutrition and making sure you're eating healthy foods, I would say, and make sure you're getting enough calories. But at the same time, if you are that type of athlete, you're burning so many calories that it would be so tough to get enough from whole foods that you're going to have some processed food. But with that, I would suggest like getting it from healthier processed foods. So like for me, for example, I can eat more brown rice pasta than I can eat brown rice. To me, that's not like a big compromise in terms of processing the food, but it allows me to get more in. By the way, that's the Canadian pronunciation, pasta. Sorry about that.
Pasta.
Sorry for your American. Which I think Americans should say pasta, because you guys say pasta, but pasta feels a little more British or a little more Canadian, right?
Pasta.
Pasta.
Yeah, it does kind of. Yeah,
like
yeah, it has the tongue.
pasta. I want some pasta, boys.
Yeah, right.
So maybe we can start to change the pronunciation in the US. But yeah, so I think so. You need it. Like even for me, if I want to gain weight, even as someone who's not an endurance athlete, just as a guy who likes to lift weights for 45 minutes a few times per week, I need processed food. So yeah, well, I get that.
If I can refine it a little bit, so how about some of the accumulative effects of, say, preservatives or colors or flavors or these trans fatty acids and things like that? Is there a point to where you're just exercising so much that stuff doesn't matter? Or is it like it still does accumulate, or it still does have a negative effect? Maybe it will take a long time.
Yeah.
What comes to mind?
Yeah, I would still avoid that regardless. And I think with that too, it can kind of depend on the person, because there's some people that can just like eat junk food and they're fine their whole life. And there's other people who can try eating that way for a week and it's just like they can't handle it. It's what are you used to? What is your digestive system like? Like for me, I think that would hit me harder than some other people, just because I've had kind of weak digestion in the past. So yeah, I would still avoid it and then just kind of feel it out. Like if you're eating that way and it feels good and you don't notice, like I wouldn't worry about it too much. Although of course, yeah, you know it's not healthy. So
yeah, that's how it was in high school. I would just eat like the worst garbage ever.
So if you guys don't mind me stepping in here, in my discussions that I've had with AJ, one of the most influential parts of our discussions was that he taught me to really have a foundation for my health. Like you do want to have those foods that you get in, even if it's not every day, but 4 or 5 times a week, so that you set just great health for yourself, so that even if you do eat other foods that you might not run into many issues, and one of the things that I've seen with my life is that, like, when I was doing just like a lot of fruit and a lot of rice and not many greens or vegetables, like I did notice certain issues inside, like in my body, especially like in my throat. And it came back to bite me. But I will say that my training and my athleticism was next level. Like I felt like I was just going nuts on the bike. So, like I do believe that we do have to have that foundation, but that it's okay to eat some more somewhat processed foods, but I feel like like biking and running, I feel like that does have to play a part in your life. It's funny. There's this guy that I follow on Strava. He's a cyclist. His name is Dr. Evil. I've never met him. He lives like 30 minutes from me, but I asked him the one day, I was like, oh my gosh, like what'd you eat on your ride today? Just because he went on like some 80-mile ride. He does that like 4 times a week, and he goes crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do you have? He's like, oh yeah, I had Twinkies. I had like some candy. I had a Coke, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? And this guy's like epic. He's an epic rider. But I feel like for long-term health, I just don't see how that's beneficial long-term, and I don't see how eating those foods is going to really keep you away from disease later in life, even if you are working out. So that's especially why that foundation, just like the sleep, but that foundation for your food is imperative. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, like some people can just get away with anything and it just works for them. And that guy might live to be 95 and cycling till he's 80. And there's just like no logical explanation for it. His body just handles it. But
just like the smokers, my grandma smoked till she was 104.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
but it's like, I wouldn't take my chances, Yeah. It's like, I know that stuff's not good for me. I know smoking's not good for me. I don't like it, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's like if you took 100 people that ate that way compared to 100 people that eat in a more healthful way, like the odds are just going to be against the unhealthy eaters.
Right.
There might be a few that just thrive regardless,
right? But
it's like 70% of them are going to die early and develop all these conditions, whereas the other groups is going to fare a lot better. So
yeah, totally.
It's kind of how I see it. There's always outliers.
Mm-hmm.
I got something controversial.
Go for it. I'm not afraid of controversy. As you
Awesome. I want to know what you think about. Someone brought up recently. Who was it, MP? About the Impossible Burger, saying how bad it is. I want to know Josh's stance on it, and specifically, not really. The specific thing that I want to know is she brought up the estrogen and how high in estrogen it was. And go ahead. MP.
Well, I don't think there's
better than I do.
I don't think there's estrogens. I think it's phytoestrogens is what it is. And I know just from what Plant Proof says, it says that the phytoestrogens are actually beneficial for your health rather than they take away your health.
Yeah.
But there was yeah. So, I mean, I feel like there's just this, like recently there's just been like this big, not like a debate, but just people posting and commenting, especially on my stories and whatnot, like, oh, the Impossible Burger is horrible for you. It's GMO. There's glyphosate. You shouldn't be eating that.
Like, do you not love yourself, MP?
Yeah.
How could you put that in your body?
Yeah. And yeah, like obviously it might not be, oh, it's not the best food. What is the best food? The best food's different for everybody, the people who are doing the carnivore, they think steaks is superfood. I disagree. Yeah. So am I wrong or are they wrong? Who knows, but there's like the people, especially the raw vegans, are like, oh, look at all these, look what's in the Impossible Whopper. It has preservatives. It has oil. It has added, I don't even know, added gums, whatever. It might not. I don't know exactly, but they'll claim that those essentially will cause issues with your health, but it's funny because I'll see people, they'll make posts like, oh, well, look at this chemical. This is what it actually is. When you break it down, it's the same chemical that's in this banana. Like if you look at what actually is in a banana, there's 1,000 ingredients in a banana. It's not like, yes, it is just a banana, but there's all these different kind of acids.
Like the chemistry that makes it up.
What'd you say?
Like the chemistry that makes it
up.
Yeah,
right. Like chemistry is chemistry,
Yeah, like the composition.
But specifically also it was like she was comparing 2 grams of estrogen or 2 milligrams of estrogen in a regular Whopper and then like 44 in an Impossible Whopper, drawing a conclusion like, everyone thinks they're eating so much healthier and these are really bad. And then the pushback from that would be like, well, at least it doesn't have heme iron. It doesn't have these other things that the vegan, the not vegan version has. So like, what's your thoughts on it overall? Is it just something you wouldn't put in your body? Do you think that people should be worried about phytoestrogens? Is it just complete nonsense? Are they beneficial? And about the heme iron versus, the iron in the meat-based stuff?
Yes, there's a few things there. For starters, I don't think those are healthy foods, and I don't really eat those. I eat veggie burgers, but it's ones that are made of like corn and chickpeas and stuff like that. They're a lot healthy and cleaner. I have had the like Impossible or Beyond burgers, and like I don't like the Beyond. Yeah, they kind of gross me out, and not from the perspective of they're trying to replicate meat. It's just like the smell. The smell, like the aftertaste. Yeah, and I just kind of felt sick afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't think
the night I had those, me and my ex, we made them, and we got the Beyond burgers and we got the field roast cheese, and we like stacked these burgers up, and we had like 2 each or 4 each or something, but it was like each burger was like almost like $20 the way we made them. I'm like, That's why I laughed. I'm like, so expensive. But I just remember I didn't feel good on those. And when we were making them, I thought they smelled disgusting. They tasted okay, but they smelled so bad.
I had one like last summer and I just felt sick for like a week afterwards. I actually had to like puke one day, and I'm not a puker. That's rare for me. So I don't know if it was just like really old or something, but I'm not into those. I don't really think they're healthy.
I thought the Impossible was better than the Beyond.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't even had an Impossible burger, to be honest. I've definitely had Beyond burgers.
Have you had a field roast, that brand?
I've seen it. I don't know if I've had any of their products though that
Gotcha.
I could remember. We do have them around here though.
Very tasty.
Maybe I'll try some. Like I'll eat some of the junk food once in a while. Like that's what I was saying before. You kind of have to respect your history. That's another reason why people fail. They go from this junk food diet to eating super healthy, and they're kind of like forgetting their past. It's just too extreme of a change, and you kind of have to have a delicate balance there.
I remember something that stuck with me. I seen an interview with Megan Elizabeth. She was a big raw vegan for a long time, big influential in the Harley era, the Freely era.
I know.
She was saying how like she just felt sick. She was on this like very specific protocol with all the supplements and
Yeah, she
celery
was like
juice,
a
then,
supplement addict.
yeah, then coconut water, then doing her like heavy detox smoothie and just a whole routine, and just always like she can mess up once and just be failing for a long time. And
That
her
sounds
boyfriend,
obsessive.
yeah, her boyfriend was like, hey, listen, she's like, I can't eat another fucking whatever, another vegetable or fruit or rice or whatever it was. And he's like, well, listen, forget about health, forget about ethics. If you could eat anything, what would it be? And she's like, it would be a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And like, just going back to what you just said, remembering our past or whatever, if you could sit down, if you're failing and you could sit down and eat some kind of plant-based burger or like a burrito burger or anything, and it actually just sounds really good, it's actually what you want. Maybe it's not up to your standard or ideal of what's healthy, but you listen to what your body is saying. Like, I would love to eat this. I feel like that's a pretty good sign that maybe you need what's in it.
Yeah.
Or the calories or digestibility or something.
Right. Those things can be like good for you psychologically, even though they're not good for your health and digestion. It's just, you kind of need that. Like if you ate burgers every week for 25 years and you gave up burgers, it can be hard psychologically, I think.
Totally.
Definitely.
The other thing too I wanted to mention was regarding the estrogens and phytoestrogens. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's possible for plant foods to have estrogen.
Yeah. No.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mixed that up.
Yeah. You didn't mix it up, because that's what that post said. The post was talking about estrogen. It didn't say phytoestrogen. So
right. No, you didn't mess it up. That's what that woman was saying,
yeah.
I think. But
gotcha.
I don't think it's possible. And I think there is a big difference in terms of phyto and regular estrogen. I haven't researched it too much, but the way that our bodies absorb it, I think phytoestrogen is actually good for you. There's a lot of studies on that, I believe.
Yeah.
And people will be like, oh, soy is bad for you, soy is bad for you. It's like, okay, well, let's look at the countries that eat the most of it. Like, let's go to Indonesia, where everyone in Indonesia eats like soy every day, and let's observe them. They don't have these problems that people seem to think that soy causes. So I don't really believe that. Or you look at Japan too. Like, I do think actually the fermented soy is better for you. Like, they have in Indonesia, they have a lot of tempeh, right? So they have the fermented soy. Like, I actually learned how to make tempeh. I make it at home, but I think that becomes easier to digest. But I don't really believe the arguments against soy with the phytoestrogens. And then with estrogen, people say like, oh, you're eating the Impossible Burger and it has these phytoestrogens. It's like, you're eating a juicy steak with breast milk from a cow. It's like, that's a woman. You're eating a woman's dead, bloody carcass. Like, she has estrogen in her flesh and in her blood and in her milk. So to me, I don't know, that seems worse to me without knowing the chemistry and the biology of it too much.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm actually looking up right now. I know Plan Proof, I think he has a good article on phytoestrogen. I know he actually has an article on soy, because when I first went vegan, this was actually back when I was in college. And I remember coming out of class, and I was sitting down with some girl who was doing, she was studying for some nutrition course, or to be a nutritionist. And I actually sat down with her, and for some reason soy came up, and I remember sending her the article about soy that Simon wrote over at Plant Proof. And my biggest takeaway from it was basically that, like, you have to eat so much soy, just like an insane amount of soy, for it to have a negative effect on your body.
Yeah.
Soy milk's my favorite milk too. I think it's the tastiest.
Yeah. Like, I agree. I don't believe that kind of perspective on soy. And I found, like, when I eat more soy, my testosterone levels are actually higher. Like,
wow.
I think it was last summer I was at home and eating a lot of soy, and my testosterone was like the highest it had been. So,
like, as far as blood markers, or like how you feel? Okay.
Yeah, blood markers. Yeah, like, I get my blood tested like twice a year, and it was good.
Nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Cool.
You guys want to get into some of these questions, or did you have something else?
Well, actually, I actually did have two questions that I wasn't able to ask you from earlier. So we were talking about the fasting, and I just wanted to ask you, you said that even still you will fast till 12. Now, do you feel that that's forced, or do you feel that that's just like natural for you now, and that it's just easy? And like, do you feel hunger at all? Maybe around 9 or 10, or is it like, okay, I'm going till 12, just because I feel like people run into certain eating disorders where it's like, no, I can't eat until 12, 11:59, 12, boom, now I can eat, and I feel like that's not healthy. So I didn't know for you if you were so strict where it's like, oh, I'm waiting until 12, or if it's like, oh, it's 11, I'll eat. Oh, that's 11:25, oh, it's 12:41, I was out,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's a good question too. I would say when I was starting out with intermittent fasting, where it was a goal of mine, I wanted to accomplish that, I was more strict, where it's like,
mhm,
okay, no, I can't eat till 4. If it was whatever 3:45, I'd be like, okay, whatever, 15 minutes. I was never that hard on myself. I was never one to get super carried away. But
mhm,
I would be strict because I was trying to accomplish that. But now that I've accomplished it and I've just adapted psychologically and everything, like, no, it's not a challenge. I don't force myself to do that. If I feel hungry a little bit early, I'll eat earlier. It's not a big deal, and it
right.
feels really natural where I don't want to eat until later on in the day. I've
Yeah.
I've said this to other people, but at this point, if it was like 9:30 in the morning and someone came to me and they're like, "Hey, come here," and they had a table just loaded with all my favorite food, and they'd be like, "Check it out, like go ahead," I'd be like, "No thanks, I'll come back at 12, or can you save it for me? I'll eat it at 5 o'clock." Like that's
Right.
how much like self-control I have and how adapted I am to eating that way, where it doesn't
Nice.
matter what or when, I won't eat it unless it's like more in alignment with what my body's used to.
Right.
Does does
Or
that adapt
right.
with
Not
the
nice.
training? Like when you're doing the boxing and stuff, does it adapt or similar?
Yeah, and real quick before you answer that, like, do you work out fasted too? So like, will you work out at
Yeah.
10 o'clock and then go eat
Yeah.
after, So
Yeah. Good question. Yeah, no, I work out fasted. I prefer it. Like when I first started doing it, I was actually kind of like nervous about it. This was, I
mhm,
don't know, 2016 or 17. And I went to the gym and I was like, I didn't eat yet. I don't know, this is kind of different. But then I got
right.
so used to it where like I don't want to work out after eating, especially after eating my big meal. Like I'll go
Right. Yeah,
skateboard
yeah,
in,
yeah, yeah. Neither do I. Neither
yeah,
do I.
I'll go skateboard in the evening or whatever, but I don't like doing my more exerting like weightlifting type of stuff
Right.
on a full stomach or even a couple hours after a full stomach. I just feel like lighter, leaner, stronger,
Totally.
less I don't know what the word is, kind of like less interrupted by
Mhm.
digestion when I work out on an empty stomach.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know like there's people out there who are like in the pro metabolic side of health, and they're big into like thyroid health and like T3 and
Mm,
T4 and stuff like that. I've never actually gotten all that tested, but they'll say that like, oh well, like fasting will essentially just decrease all of that, and it'll like mess up those thyroid hormones. I don't know if you've experienced that within yourself, because I mean, you even said that you got your blood tested twice.
yeah.
Like have your thyroid hormones been pretty normal?
Yeah,
If
I get
not,
my
maybe
blood tested.
better.
I get my blood tested at least twice a year for a long time now. I've never had my thyroid numbers out. I've never really had anything that
Mhm.
was too far out of the normal ranges. I don't I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I'm sure that could happen to some people, but I don't think it's like an automatic thing where if you do an extended fast, it's going to mess up your thyroid.
Right.
I mean, thyroids are a big problem these days,
Right.
but I'm not sure what the whole
My
pathology is behind it.
my view would be like there's going to be certain people that will have potential thyroid issues, and those are
Yeah.
the people that you're seeing have the problem. Whereas there's plenty of people that are doing it who are having good or fine results, but they don't
Mhm.
speak out because they're not having any issue, and maybe they're
Right.
not like touting all the benefits as loudly
Yeah.
as the people who are suffering. So I think you
Right.
see that influx of people who are like and also people who are really against fasting and any kind of like habits or restriction, they're going to point to the weakest links all the time and make it like,
Mhm.
we'll see, of course they weren't doing this, like you have to start your metabolism and different things.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a big part of the whole game.
That's a really good point, actually. And that kind of reminds me of like a restaurant, for example. When you go to the reviews, it's like people that loved it or people that hated it.
Yeah.
If you were just like, yeah, that was pretty good, I would go back. Those people don't leave reviews. So with fasting, it's like the people that almost died and the people that had a complete transformation.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's like, yeah, it was fine. It was kind of boring. I didn't sleep very well. Nothing crazy happened. Like no one wants to hear that unless someone's actually very objectively interested in learning and hearing different perspective. But
Yeah.
that's not the type of video that's going to go viral. Like no one cares that I was like, yeah, it was okay. Nothing interesting to report.
Right. Right. Well, similar to like, let's even say the vegan community in eating like fully raw versus eating even any cooked food. I feel like there's such a disconnect between the people who are fasting and then the people who are like, no, eat every 2 to 3 hours and don't go more than 8 hours without eating, you know, or don't go more than 10 hours without eating, or as soon as you wake up, or eat within 30 minutes of waking up. You know, that's just like what I've heard that. And once again, there's just such a disconnect. And I feel like there shouldn't be, you need to have a strategy, and it's good to have routine and schedules with what you're eating. But at the same time, it's like, you got to listen to your body, you know?
Yeah.
I've heard people say like intermittent fasting, it's the best thing you can do for your health. You know, everybody should do it. If you have they'll say if you're able to balance your blood sugar, then it'd be great, you know? And then what I like to do, I'm like right dead smack in the middle, you know, like I don't like eat right away when I get up, but I also don't wait like too long. You know, I don't wait till 12. I usually eat like middle of the morning, you know? So I feel like that's kind of how I am. I just sort of have that balanced approach to kind of even it out. And some days I'll work out fasted. Some days I'll wait and I'll make sure I get something in me and I'll let that digest and I'll go work out, you know? So
you guys are so stable.
I think that's fine, MP. It's like, whatever, it works for you. It's like, that's one of those things where it's like, we don't need to fight over those opinions, because like both groups can do well. And if they're both doing well, then like agree to disagree. And it's like, it's not like it's not like I'm right and you're wrong and you're so wrong that it's going to take 10 years off your life. It's probably insignificant in the big picture.
Right.
And two, it's like what's working for you. If it isn't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, when it comes to like consistency, like I was thinking too, with sleeping and eating, those are the things that we probably should be really consistent with. But you know, having some variety once in a while, like for you, if you work out fasted and not fasted sometimes, like that'll help you kind of realize what works better for you. Like sometimes you really need to break your routine to realize how much you need it, or how much you appreciate it, or how much not having it can affect you. So like we need to mix it up a little bit just for learning and growth.
Awesome. So I think we're running about an hour and a half here. I mean, I'd be cool with talking for 3 hours. But I feel I feel we should definitely be coming to a close within the next 5 to 10 minutes. So
sure.
I have one more question, AJ, if you have any more questions.
Before you do, I just wanted to say, that I think it's a good time to start wrapping up. I agree. And I think great, Josh, to have you on again at some point. I feel like we could do this maybe once every few months. It's a great introduction to it. Yeah. But there's so much that we can.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to. I like your guys' questions too. So there's so many other topics, and that list I sent you, we could go over that. Like I like providing people with useful information. I like helping people. I don't expect anything in return. And I want, the things I've learned, I wish there was other people that, had that information available. And there were ones that did, and they helped a lot more than any doctor ever helped me, just by sharing their experiences.
Right.
MP?
Yeah. So my final question to you is, if there's one change that you believe everybody can make for their health starting right now, what would that change be? Whether it's changing their diet, whether it's getting more sleep, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's just a mindset, maybe it's meditation, reading a book, 30-minute daily practice. What would you have to say to someone?
You guys got good questions. Without putting too much thought into that, it has to be a general thing. It can't be like adding water, adding sleep. I think it has to be more mindful, be more observant, be more in touch with your body, start paying attention. If you're feeling some symptoms and you don't know what's causing them, start doing a food journal. Don't get carried away, don't get obsessive, but just trying to connect the dots and be like, I don't sleep as well when I have caffeine, or when I eat closer to bedtime, or I don't feel as strong at the gym when I go after eating. Just like paying more attention to your body and being more intentional with what you're doing, both in health, but with spending your money, kind of everything. Just like that self-awareness and being able to understand the feedback your body and your mind are giving you. That's huge.
Yeah, that's great. And then I also have one more question. Phenomenal answer. Thank you for sharing that. Back to the fasting. So there's people who they'll do the fast, and let's say they do it great, but they don't break the fast properly or in a good way, or they binge eat after.
Yeah.
Was there any, like, do you believe that you broke your water fasting properly, the right way? Did you see any issue, like not like health issues, but even like issues with like emotional issues or stress issues after like once you started incorporating more food? So does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a big thing, and that can like make or break your results if you fast it the wrong way. I mean, people end up in the hospital for not. I don't know if you know Casey, what's his, like vegetable conspiracies on YouTube or whatever, used to be vegetable police or whatever.
I
Like
love him.
he did his. I haven't heard from
He's
him in a while. I was
crazy.
just thinking about him today, but I think the way he broke his didn't work out. So you have
Yeah.
to be careful with that. For me, I never had any major
Eggs.
issues. As far as like, yeah, he did eggs. Like as far as like emotional, like I'm just not an emotional person. I'm just like very stable. Like, yeah, I have emotions, but I'm not all over the
Right.
place. So I never had an issue with that, but I was careful and like I was really well researched with my fasting before I did it. You know, just
Mhm.
like I said before, like when I commit to something, it's usually because I've thought about it, I've investigated, I've made up my mind on it. It wasn't just like, oh, like cool, someone did 3 weeks without food, I'm going to do that without any
Right.
investigation.
Right.
So I was pretty intentional and careful, and I broke it with coconut water, watermelon, things like that. So
Nice.
just light hydrating stuff that's not gonna do much. And yeah, I never had any issues other than maybe the time after a dry fast, I felt a little bit bingy afterwards, but that
Right.
was probably just my
Which
body
I can
like
understand.
wanting calories. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I still have 100 more questions to ask you, but
Yeah, We'll have
AJ,
to schedule a round 2 then.
yeah, AJ,
And then a round 3 off of YouTube for pandemic stuff.
yeah, right. Because that's where you really do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Josh has honestly, he's been my one of my biggest resources during this pandemic, and he's not like one-sided. He gets it all, so he's very understandable, and it's been really awesome seeing what he has to say. So thank you again for all that you've done. It's really cool.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been
Mhm.
for me. It's just like I like that. I know this stresses people out and this is scary, but for me, this is like I was kind of waiting for this stuff to happen. And
Yeah,
like I get into the numbers and I get into the details, but it's like that's what I was doing before that.
right.
Before I was researching the pandemic numbers, I was doing like real estate economics and
Yeah.
statistical analysis. So this is kind of my thing, anyways.
That's what my last thing I was going to close with is my whole assessment of you over this chat. I was like, I know you said you haven't been working and you're not really focused on certain jobs and whatever, but it sounds like you would be one of the best businessmen just because of that stability and that ability to be very conscientious and disagreeable enough to not put up with bull crap. So
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine if you put your head into something like that, you would probably just completely kill it.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, definitely. That's how I feel. Is like I do have a business background and a business mindset, and naturally thinking that way. And like one of the jobs I would like to do more of is like business consulting. Like I can just like I feel like offer help to many different types of businesses. And
Nice.
yeah, I've been lucky with my past work positions where I never really got cornered into one, like accounting department. I was doing marketing, I was doing HR, I was doing economics and finance and accounting and
Mhm.
all these other things. So I'm kind of just a generalist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very open to experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, Doug. Wow.
Well, no, the reason I drew that parallel is because there's something a term that he came up with called the sucker triad, where it's someone who's very intelligent, which I think we all three of us are pretty intelligent. But then the other ones is you're very agreeable and you're very conscientious. And again, I think that we're all pretty conscientious, pretty detail oriented, diligent. But the agreeableness can also set you apart, and neuroticism as well, because like usually agreeable people get taken advantage of because it's so much harder for them to say no. And if you're neurotic as well and you're up and down with your emotions, you can be flying high 1 minute in business, and then when something goes wrong, you kind of fall apart. So I feel like you have all of those strengths working for you. You're like the opposite of a sucker triad.
Thanks. I think too with me, I'm very situational because for the most part, I am an agreeable person. But at the same time, if I feel strongly about something, I will push back. So
my view of that is because I think a lot about that, and I think a lot about all these things, and I feel as though I agree there's a good amount of agreeableness with you, and I'm like, is it the disagreeableness that I'm seeing that he's able to stand up and say these things and not feel like it rocks him that much? And I think the more that I'm interacting, it seems more to me that it has to do with the stability, because one of the reasons why I try to avoid arguing isn't because necessarily I don't want to argue, it's because it kind of throws me into a little bit of a angry state that's hard for me to get out of, and I feel like my emotions are harder to control. So it has really nothing to do with my disagreeableness. In a sense, it feels more like I avoid it because of my neuroticism.
It
and my
shakes you up a little bit too much.
I don't want
right?
to I don't want to lose sleep. I don't want to go through all those things, and I feel like maybe that's what, because I would have guessed that you were more disagreeable, but I can see that the stability just makes it to where you can disagree and it doesn't affect you on that kind of scale like it would me. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is some people avoid confrontation because it really kind of just ruins their mindset. And for me, it does too. Like when some people argue with me, it will, like my attention will focus there and I'll be a little bit angry for a little bit of time, but it doesn't ruin my sleep. And as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes, like debating with people or being challenged, I find that that's getting that type of interaction makes me smarter, more knowledgeable. I'm more likely to investigate things, to get more confident in what I believe in. So I'll get compliments from people and I kind of forget about those right away, but it's the insults or the challenges that are actually going to allow me to take a step forward too. So that's another balancing act. I don't want to be arguing with people online all day, but at the same time, if all I'm getting is like posting things where I know I'm going to get positive feedback, then it's like that doesn't serve me that well either.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel as though I would love to do that more if it didn't trigger, like, because you said that there's a lot of people who will learn about or read about the pandemic or news or whatever, and it'll affect them. It'll really stress them out and things. And I'm definitely more of that kind of person where I just do so much better avoiding it versus so many people talk about like facing things and act like that's what makes you overcome stuff. I completely disagree on a lot of areas, one of them being heights. Like a lot of people, I would do these 30-foot jumps, like if you jump it, you'll overcome it. And I would jump it and I go up to do it again, and it wasn't even that bad. And I'd be more afraid the second time. Like, not like heights. Once I'm back up there, I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And I think that sometimes it's amazing and great and it works out. And sometimes people are putting themselves in positions where it's like they're trying to make it like they're overcoming something, but really they're just stressing themselves out consistently over and over.
Yeah, that's another one of those things where you kind of have to be careful. It has to be the right time, the right place in order to face it. And sometimes, facing it is not the solution. So I know when it comes to the whole pandemic situation, I know a lot of people who just know something is wrong, but they also don't want to face it because it shakes them up too much. But at least I respect them, because I know like that they intuitively know something is wrong. They understand that looking into these kind of deep rabbit holes will be harmful to them, but they can at least accept that other people should be investigating it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think the slaughterhouses is a good comparison. Like, it's good to know exactly kind of what's going on and how the animals are treated. But like if you're involved in animal rights and you're watching that video or showing that content to people all the time and in hopes to educate them, but it's really a detriment to your own physical well-being, it doesn't seem worth it to me. It's great to know, but to surround yourself by it all the time seems not like the best idea. And then you have people who are like thrive off it. They're like, it fuels them and they feel like that's their purpose.
Yep, definitely. And it's kind of just knowing your boundaries and knowing when to, cut yourself off before traumatizing yourself or whatever. So
I have too many boundaries. Okay, I think that's an amazing place to stop, Josh. Thank you so much for coming by. This is really fun. That actually flew by. I wasn't even aware that we were, probably almost 2 hours into this.
Yeah, we're probably about an hour and 40 in. So.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was good.
Yeah.
So for the people listening, please leave it, because we're going to have Josh on again in the future. And I'm sure a lot of the things he said spiked a good amount of interest. Leave like some comments below what you guys would like to hear from him next time. I feel as though, whether it be health or minimalism or all this stuff, I know that people are going to be interested. So if you made it this far, please leave that down below and we will be happy to bring that up in the next one.
Should I list off a few things too that from my topic list?
Oh yeah, in case anyone's
okay. So like the things I had there were dental health on a fruit diet, sleep improvement, which you guys covered already, thoughts on veganism, cure for low iron or way to help with low iron, acid reflux cure, importance of calories, minimalism, personal finance tips. That's one of my like strong areas too.
Cool.
And then the human behavioral psychology, understanding addictions, characteristics, stuff like that.
I would
then
love to
investing.
I would love to break that up into a few. So like,
Yep.
if we did like fruitarian, and then because you mentioned teeth, like on a fruit diet, but
Yeah.
really dove into a bunch of aspects of fruitarian, and then like investments, and really dove into a bunch of different stuff. That would be ideal. Like one show for one kind of topic. I think that could be pretty good. What do you guys think?
Yeah, even like the human behavioral psychology, like understanding people's characteristics and their addictions and stuff, like that could be a long show too. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Awesome.
I'm open, I'm flexible to whatever.
Cool.
Very agreeable
All
of
right,
you.
But at the same time, if you want some disagreement, let's line up a debate. I'll debate the FDA commission. You know, like throw anyone at me.
We'll set it up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Close this out.
Yeah. Josh, just want to give you another thank you. Much appreciative to take the time to come sit here and chat with us. It was awesome. I had a great time. So.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I love the questions, and I like kind of sharing what I've learned and what I know. So yeah,
nice.
Happy to put that out there.
Nice.
All right, guys.
Awesome. Well, hey, stay up, be great. Always keep it 100, baby.
Stay hungry.